Hey everybody, this is Tom Nash, and now that the aftermath of the Israeli counterstrike on Iranian soil begins to kind of make itself more clear and the dust has settled, we understand what exactly happened here. We understand the theater. So basically, just to give you the brief of how events played out, the Israelis took out a general, an Iranian general that was in Syria in a building that was next to the consulate. The Iranians were butthurt about it. They basically said, well, you just bombed our consulate, which is not that accurate, but essentially they got bothered by it. And they said, you know what, we're going to respond, and this time we're going to respond very harshly. So what they've done, essentially let the Israelis know and the US know exactly what they're going to do a week in advance so that the Israelis and the US can prepare and absolutely stop the attack, which they did. A few rockets hit a military base, something caught fire, and basically that was the whole thing. Now, the Israelis waited a few days to retaliate on their own, try to come up with their own response, signaling to everybody they're going to respond very harshly because they're going to basically ram Iran into the ground. And eventually they carried out a very limited response. And then what we had right after this very limited response, apparently 3 missiles that took out a radar. The result is very interesting. So a few days after the attack, Israel gets $26 billion in military aid. And Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, just came out today on all media outlets saying, hey, we're going into Rafah. In the next few days, you're going to hear more about our plans, but we're going back full force into Gaza. We're going in. Something that the US prevented the Israelis to do for a long time. So you can kind of see where I'm going with this. So the Israelis basically played, I think, the cards to the best of their ability, faking their desire to go hard at Iran. The US basically had to bribe them not to go hard at Iran, and their benefit is the $26 billion in military aid and the green light to go into Rafah. And now we actually have more information about the strike. Apparently, the Israelis hit a radar that was part of the defense system in Isfahan that was supposed to defend and protect the Natanz nuclear sites. Something that the Iranians did not know was this vulnerable, especially when the Israelis never really breached the Iranian airspace and actually collaborated with Iran's unfriendly neighbors to make it happen, which is a huge concern for Iran. Now, they've also made it very easy for Iran not to respond and to ignore this, which they did by essentially not causing a lot of damage, because believe it or not, it seems that everybody got what they wanted out of this. I'm not going to go into analyzing who got the better part of this trade. I'm just going to let you know what everybody wanted and how they actually got it. So Iranians, they needed to save face back home to show that they've retaliated, that they've humiliated the Israelis, and they got it. Internal politics, check. Now, they've also prevented a regional war, which they did not want, because Iranians much prefer to wage a proxy war. They kind of view themselves as the king on the chessboard. They don't want to move. They want to move all the other pieces. So they much rather keep on with the proxy war and hurting Israel this way without actually getting involved in this directly. So all their checks have been checked. On the other hand, the Israelis got $26 billion in aid. They've also got a couple tens of billions in sales of this aerial defense system, and they've actually got the green light to go into Rafah. All things that they wanted. And the US got what it wanted, which is oil prices coming down from 90 to 87 to 85 and now to $82. So the lack of a fear of a regional war in the Middle East sends oil prices down from $90 to $82 per barrel, which might actually bring down inflation and help the Biden administration to campaign towards the November election. Now, they don't have a lot of time because usually people, make up their mind towards July and August. Nobody really makes up their mind in November. So, time is beginning to press. So everybody got what they wanted here. And now the Israelis are going to be faced with a lot of interesting decisions. Once they go into Rafah and basically clean out Hamas, which they will, at least militarily, right? Not talking about the concept or the movement. They're going to have to make a decision. Who's going to rule that place? Whether it's going to be disarmed Hamas or the Palestinian Authority or maybe some sort of a canton system, which we talked about here, or maybe they bring in somebody who's an old face. They import maybe Dahlan from UAE, or maybe they release Barghouti from prison. There's going to be a decision that was pretty much postponed so far about what comes next for Gaza, which is a tough decision. I'm going to be honest, there's no good options here for the Israelis, but they're going to have to pick one that's not as bad as the other. I don't envy Netanyahu for making that choice. The other thing is the Israelis face a very difficult choice in the north. Hezbollah has basically been bombarding the entire north of Israel. The entire stretch of that north of Israel has been evacuated. Homes are being bombarded. So the Israelis will have to deal with Hezbollah. Hezbollah basically thinks that in this particular case, they don't need to negotiate with the Israelis because they're saying to themselves, look, why would we negotiate with you, right? We're going to keep bombarding you, and then you either just take it or you come into Lebanon and we're going to screw you over because Lebanon ain't Gaza. We have more fighters, more weapons, more missiles, so it's going to be a completely different battle. Why don't you come over to Lebanon and make us stop? That's the attitude of Hezbollah. Again, not an easy problem, and I can assure that Hezbollah is definitely not Gaza. Different terrain, different geography, well-trained, well-equipped. It's going to be a completely different ballgame. And of course, the Israelis have about a year and a half to decide what they want to do with the Iranian nuke. For that, they're going to have US help because they're not going to do it on their own. And that's going to depend a lot on who wins the elections in the US. I'm not going to get political, but you make up your own mind. So a lot of interesting movements happening in Israel, in the Middle East. Make sure you keep watching this channel if you want to get updated. And if you want to get a little bit extra and support the channel, consider joining our Patreon, patreon.com/Dominus Report. I appreciate all the patrons we have right now on the Patreon. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one.